My name is Brian Gillen. I'm a volunteer at the South Australian Maritime Museum. I'm one of the volunteer skippers on the Archie. And the Archie, we use the Archie to take school kids on excursions on the Port River. I'm also the author of a little book called Who Can Save the Dolphins? And so the Archie and the book sort of go together because the setting of the book took place on the Archie. And that's what I'd like to talk to you about. Look, I came here in 1980. I was born in Glasgow, UK, and I came out here in 1980. At that time, Britain was going through the Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan, and I just didn't think it was a good place to be. So I came out here because I've got a brother here, and I thought I'll come for a holiday for 3 months. That was in 1980. Still here. So they haven't deported me yet. Look, I fell in love with the place. I guess growing up on the Clyde in Glasgow was very similar to growing up alongside the Port River. So as soon as I saw the river, I've always been a mariner, always been a sailor, and I couldn't wait to get on the river. And I had a little boat at the Port Adelaide Sailing Club, and that's where I discovered these dolphins. And I was just blown away, not so much about dolphins, every sailor's seen dolphins, but the very fact that we've got these wild dolphins right here in an industrial city, as the port was there in a river. I just couldn't believe it. I've never seen that anywhere else in the world. I just kind of want to let people know that this is quite a unique thing. We've got wild dolphins here in the Port River. They come right up into the inner harbour, and we're, what, 12 miles from Adelaide. You know, where else do you actually get that? And I don't know if people really appreciate it, or if people even aware that we've got this pod of wild dolphins. And the dolphins, like, they've got their own personalities. Where you get to know them, you get to see them, you get to identify them, they kind of become, you know, I always say they're great South Australian ambassadors. Just a little bit about the Archie. As part of the South Australian Maritime Heritage, and again, I don't think a lot of people know about it. The Archie was built in 1942, so she's 78 years old. And a group of us volunteers keep her going. When she was built right here in the port. The port there at that stage had General Motors Holdings across the river there. So she was built here. They built about 500 of them, and there were army patrol boats, but this particular one went to the Navy. And so she spent a lot of her time here in South Australia as a supply vessel. After the war, she was given to the South Australian Police, so she was the very first, as we understand it, police rescue boat. So if you got in trouble out there, that's the boat they sent out to you. The name Archie, she got that name because Archie was one of the very first South Australian police officers to get killed in World War II. And so, of course, when she went to the police, they honoured Archie by calling the vessel after her. So we like to kind of keep alive the fact that this boat is like the Dolphins, is very much part of the maritime history in Port Adelaide. So I've got the kids on board, we're out in the river, we tell them about the Archie, we tell them about the Dolphins. And what inspired the book was, one day we were out there, beautiful day, and we came across a little dolphin, and it was tangled in fishing wire, discard fishing line. And the kids were really upset, but there was one little girl in particular, she was inconsolable. And she kept begging me to do something, and I'm thinking, I felt really powerless, you know, you want to do something, but what can I do? I can't leave the boat and jump in the water and try, and you're not supposed to touch the dolphins anyway. So I tried to calm the kids down and I got back, but this kid was really, really upset. I spoke to her parents and whatever. And she kept saying, you need to do something. And that night I went home and I'm thinking, what else, what can we do? And she just was in my head. Anyway, the next morning I get up. Now, I've been a bit of an amateur writer for a long time. I've written quite a lot. I did a creative writing course. And the next morning I just started to write. Now, I've never written a children's book, and I didn't intend to write a children's book. I'm right in the midst of something else I'm working on. Anyway, it just came pouring out of me. Once I started to write, it just kept going and going, and morphed into this story about 10-year-old Sam, who, instead of discovering the dolphin, the discarded fishing line, which happens all the time, Sam discovers a little dolphin that swallowed a plastic bag. Again, happens way, way too often. And therein, Sam and her friends start an adventure about trying to find the dolphin. They want to save the dolphins, and Sam and her friends end up getting in deep trouble themselves. But the story has a happy ending, and they end up inspiring a lot of young eco-warriors. I've been doing a presentation to some of the schools around the place, And because last month was Science Week and the theme of Science Week was deep blue. So I developed this presentation called Plastic is Tragic. So I'll be going into schools and I'll be talking to the kids around about pollution and plastic. I'll show them some videos and whatever. And before I leave the school, the kids are all standing up shouting, "Plastic is tragic." And it fits with the theme of the book because it's aimed at young kids, maybe 8 to 10, 12 years old. But I've had a lot of good feedback from adults as well who've read it because it's fiction, but it's based on a lot of facts. So it's a medium of getting information across to kids about plastic. You know, I tell them like we've got more plastic in the world now than we've got fish. I talk to them about this isn't planet Earth, this is planet water. And I talk to them about the 2/3 of the ocean and what's in there, all these magnificent creatures. Then I bring them back into the dolphins and then I show them some videos. And when I explain to the kids about microplastic, that plastic never goes away, it just breaks down to, I talk to them about the size of your fingernail. And when I show them some videos, they really get it. This young generation really get it. And they're up there and they're determined. And I kind of say to them, this shocks a lot of people when you put things in context. I tell them, I say, like, I was born in 1951. Plastic only got invented in 1907, but it was 1950s before it really took off. So my mum and my grandma, they went to shops without plastic. So I talk to the kids about that, and where they're going with that is want to get back to questioning, do we need plastic? Why do I write? Because I love writing. Why do I care about the dolphins? They're such magnificent creatures, and they're a bit of like the canary in the mine. We're killing these dolphins, and yet we've got this gift of having this wild pod here, and we should all be protecting them. You know, we're custodians. Like Aboriginal people know about this stuff, about the river and the wildlife, and looked after it. We're killing it, and unless we stop, as the science would point to, when my grandkids are up, we might not have these dolphins anymore. So it's kind of like too late then. So yeah, it's that sort of sense of you want to protect them, you want to preserve them, and when you know something's wrong, it's wrong. And so the book was all about raising awareness. First, that we've got the dolphins, and secondly, we've got a responsibility to look after them. So, you know, part of this whole journey was started a long time ago for me, and I don't know, for some harebrained crazy idea, I decided I was going to build a boat. I've always had boats, you know, and my ancestors come from the island of Mull, the west coast of Scotland, so we've always been seafaring people, and all my family were merchant seamen, whatever. Anyway, I built my boat over here in Port Adelaide when we had the Port Adelaide boat. I think mine was possibly the last boat ever to be built in the Jenkins Street boatyards. It took me 10 years. Now, I'm not a shipwright, but I followed the plans, asked lots of questions, anyway, I built this beautiful little boat called Pelican. She's double-ender, clinker built, very traditional Scottish design, and I love to sail her up and down the river. I'm 69, but I feel like I'm 29. I'm still physically fit, you know, I go to the gym, I ride my bike, I'm still active, I read widely. That's what I'm thankful, appreciating those things, yeah. As I'm getting older, I do start feeling a lot more passionate about the environment. I was lucky enough to enroll in the Coastal Ambassadors course, and that just kind of like alerted me to a lot of the stuff that I just didn't know, and how much we don't know about the environment, and that then links to the whole global warming thing. And I know a lot of people think that's a lot of rubbish, but the more you read, the more you study, the more you realise how ecocentric we are. We're all worried about ourselves, and you know, but there's a huge big issue there. So yeah, that for me now, I think I've become a geriatric greenie. You know, I'm really concerned about what's happening to this planet, and the more I read, the more I find out, the more disturbed I am. And so you kind of think, well, you've got breath in your body, well, you've got a brain that thinks, I want to do something about it. I want to contribute in that little bit, because we need to.